So I wanted to share my story about how I related to money over the years. And it has a lot of different twists and turns, a lot of epiphanies in it. And the reason I thought I would share it is because every time I share one of these stories, it seems to have a positive effect on somebody's relationship with money. It changes the way that they see money. It changes the way they relate to it, and therefore changes how much money they have. And so I thought if I put all these stories together, it would have a profound effect on anybody out there who's wrestling with money issues. And one thing to know about this is that it's not going to be your typical, I woke up every morning, I changed my financial routine, I swear that I was going to kill it, and then I got some money. Like it's not anything that you would expect. So let me just start with my childhood, which is where my money issues began. My dad's dad grew up in a very poor situation, made a lot of money and then lost it. Made money in real estate, lost it in oil. And so my dad got to see this massive decline in wealth, going from somebody who was important in the town to somebody who was one of the poorest people in the town. And so for my father, money was incredibly important. There was something in him that knew what it was like to not have anything. When I was young, it felt to me that my dad cared more about money than he did about me at times. And like he cared more about having a Rolex, or he cared more about driving a Cadillac than he did about how I was doing or how much time we spent together. And that wasn't entirely true, but it's definitely how I felt. I also didn't like the way that my dad handled money. I felt like he thought people were special or good because they had money, not because of who they were. And so naturally, I started rebelling against that perspective of money. Money became something that was evil, something that was bad in my system. Anybody who wanted money was bad. Anybody who thought about money too much was bad. Anybody who wanted expensive things was bad in my mind. So I just kind of entered the world that way. And of course, in the world, you need money too. So I had this internal conflict, like, oh, I want to buy this truck, but I can't particularly want money. And so I spent a lot of my early 20s figuring out how to be poor. I found workaround for things. I figured out how to get that truck really cheaply by buying it in a salvage yard and then fixing it up. I spent a tremendous amount of time figuring out how to get what I wanted without having money. And so there's this constant war inside of me around it. And then I graduated from college. And the first thing that I did is I went and butchered fish in Alaska. So I started to how do I make enough money in 3-6 weeks so that I could basically pay off some debt and figure out how to exist, get an apartment or something like that. And I did that. And it dawned on me for the first time, oh, right, people kind of have to work for money. I had always figured out a way around it, but eventually I'm going to have to start working for money. I didn't like that at all. And at some point, I just thought, okay, I'm going to make as much money as I possibly can so that I can be an artist. I can be in a band and do what I want to do, to have freedom, which I find a lot of people get into that trap and sometimes exist to it until they're 50 or 60. Luckily for me, it only happened for a couple of years. And so I went into international stock lending. I had 3 promotions inside of 18 months, but I hated it. And I was rebelling against it the whole time. I today feel sorry for the people I worked for, because on one level I was doing some crazy good stuff, and on another level I was kicking against them the same way that I kicked against my father. So at some point I said, you know what? Screw this. I'm not going to do international stock lending anymore. This is horrible. This is soul killing. This is crushing. This horrible thing. I'm going to just pursue the arts, and I don't really care how much debt I go into. I'm just going to pursue the arts. I'm just going to take the leap. So I did. I took the leap, and after 7 years of pursuing the arts, and I did some music, and I did writing, and then I did film, and I had gotten to this place where I was being invited onto television sets and doing observing directing roles. And what I realized was that the thing that I was running away from, international stock lending, was the same thing I was running into. That it was the same thing. There was one person who had all the control, that everybody was working hard. Everybody in the system wanted to be someplace besides where they were. They were all trying to get somewhere else. And I remember the star of the television show saying to me, every time I come to work, it's like having a little piece of my soul ripped out of me. That was the star. And I'm like, this is exactly international stock lending. It's just in Hollywood, California. It's not in San Francisco.